Network Field Day 29, Day 3. Final presentation came from Nokia. Actually, it was three presentations. And I'll admit, I know Nokia does things other than old cell phones from the 90s. I do appreciate that I wasn't the only one who made a joke around old cell phones. I do hope that that wasn't too annoying for their presenters. My gut tells me they probably hear that a lot because Nokia is not really a household name when it comes to enterprise networking. Again, household and enterprise are two very different terms, but they are looking to get more into the enterprise space, and they showed a few things today that I think will definitely help with some of that. And the first presentation was titled, I have it written down here because it was a longer title. It was DevOps Approach for Enhanced NetOps with Nokia Data Center Fabric Solution. That's a lot of words. What it ultimately boiled down to was this microservices approach to their code. And the way that they described it is, if you think of traditional networking, the firmware is very monolithic, as in it's this big file, this big firmware file, and you apply it to your entire switch. And yes, there are some ways that you can do some in-service updates, and there's some redundancy things that you can take advantage of that don't bring the actual full device down. But the approach that the approach that they were putting together is more agile. And I don't mean agile as in, you look at the dictionary and what it means to be agile. When I say agile, I mean agile development, like agile versus waterfall. So their development is starting to become more agile in terms of fixes. And because all of the services within their operating system are microservices, that like features like getting a MAC address, that's its own little microservice, and they can patch just that service. Or if it's a routing function, like it's BGP, they can just patch BGP, and then when it's time for that service to be patched, you apply it, and that service restarts. It's not the entire switch stack or entire switching chassis or how we didn't get too deep into their hardware now that I think about it. Pardon me. But yeah, that was sort of the idea there, and there was definitely some wariness around that within the room. And a lot of that has to do with monolithic patches that everybody's accustomed to today. So there was a demo, and the demo went very well. Ping worked the entire time. Ping didn't crash in the middle of the presentation, and we had to go through without it. That did happen, and it was unfortunate because ping is a good indicator of connectivity. But we did still get to see the patching process, and we got to see like within uptimes as far as what processes actually restarted after the patch was applied. And it did work, and we ultimately did find out what caused the ping issue. It was more of a Linux issue than it was a ping issue. But I don't know. I don't know how I feel about it, and I think that kind of might even be a good summary of just the entire Nokia presentation, or just all of their presentations. It was like, I don't know how I feel about it because I don't really know Nokia in this enterprise space, and I know that's what they're trying to break through. So Hopefully, they get some more enterprise customers who can start vetting some of this and really say, yeah, this works. This is a trusted model. Um, I can see that model working really well, like within hyperscale, like massive environments where you have hundreds and thousands of these devices and you have to do that sort of work. So maybe there's a path through that for it to become not necessarily more stable because they're already advertising that it's stable, but just more advertised and more well known. Because if that works, I do think that's really nice. I know Cisco's tried this before. I think that's what their original 15x code when they went from 12 to 15 was to switch to a more Linux based architecture to allow you to just soft reboot services. And it's just something you don't see a lot of. And if they can make it work and they can make it popular, I think that they will see more uptake in the enterprise environment because enterprises don't want to reboot whole switches and chassis and environments. Like if you can just reboot a service, I can see that. I can see that being helpful. The second thing that they showed off, and I don't remember the full title for that, was digital twin. So something that they were very proud of, are very proud of actually, is how easy it is to obtain and work with their switching software. You could go to their website. They had a whole slide on it, and you can pull their software down and just start using it. I'm going to do that. I really like that. I know you can do that with Arista. You can get, I don't know if you can get the Docker version or if you can just get the QEMU2 files or QCOW2 files. And one of those is easier to get than the other, but Arista makes it kind of easy. Vios, obviously, they make it very easy. But Nokia does too. And what you can do is take your physical, your on-prem environment, and then by proxy of that software being so readily available, they have this platform where basically you point it at your production environment and then it builds a digital twin of it for you to interact with. That's cool. You can, I'd say there's a new version. Within just a single thing, we'll say it's a single BGP. You can just pull that down and upgrade BGP and make sure all the commands still work. If you've got tooling, integrated tooling, or you've developed some tooling with Python or whatever, make sure that all still works. And I've never seen that before, and I believe there's another networking vendor out there. I think it was Forward Networks, and I have no exposure to them, and they do something similar. But just the idea that if you have CML, so let's say you have a Cisco environment, you can build it. You can, for the most part, build your environment and represent it inside of CML, but it doesn't happen automatically for you. I like that. You can just build it down and pull it down. They'll build it out, and then you can start doing whatever it is you need to do with your digital twin. So I really like that. The last presentation was, I'm sorry, throat's bugging me. It's the end of the week. I've been talking so much. The last presentation was CMS integrations with Nokia Fabric Services System. They need to get somebody to help them shorten these names. That's just an independent aside. So my takeaway by the end of that, and I don't know why it took so long, because that presentation was almost all demo, or it was substantially demo. What happened at the very end, and when I mean the very end, it was like literally the last 60 seconds, this whole presentation clicked for me. And I'm not even going to attempt to go through explaining what they went through in the demo. I'm just going to jump straight to what my take, or what I understood it to be at the very end. And I'm going to make a comparison to ACI. Within ACI, if you want to build an integration, and when I say build the integration, that what that ultimately lets you do is from ACI integrate it into an ESXi, into a VMware hypervisor, and control the networks that get represented in VMware from ACI. And the reason I struggle with that has a lot to do with just my struggles with ACI in general, because to really get to that point, that's going to require your networking group or whoever's in charge of ACI to really understand how to build ACI to support that. Oh gosh, that's hard. And that's not me just going, networking's hard, that there are so many groups that struggle with that because how genuinely difficult it is to understand the applications at the depth that you need to build the contracts and to tie those into the EPGs, to tie those EPGs into the VLANs, to tie those VLANs into the VMM integration, all the way into ESXi, and to map those into the VLANs that you do kind of sort of need, because they still need VLANs over there. Like there's this big massive lift that you have to have inside of ACI before you can really get to that integration, that VMM integration, for it to work properly inside of ESXi, and that's all ACI driven. This was more VMware driven, which if you have developers or you have systems people who are already familiar with VM, it allows them to start from that side and sort of bring the VLANs along from the other direction. And really what you end up with, even though it's from a different side, is the ability to bridge that fabric network. Because when you're with ACI, so there's the fabric, but then there's the security overlay that goes on top of it. Well, Nokia doesn't really have that security overlay. It's more just the fabric underlay. So it allows them to interact with the fabric underlay, just the fabric itself, more directly. Maybe not more directly, but in a way that they're already sort of familiar with how networking works. And that's what ACI does that I struggle with, is that it breaks traditional networking. And yes, a MAC address is a MAC address and an IP is an IP, but just it not only it breaks the way that you interact with networking. It breaks the way that you have to think about the security groups, or it doesn't break it, but it creates new ways to think about that. And that isn't for everyone. So if Nokia has this way to still do the VM integration, which a lot of groups need, but you don't have to worry so much about that security overlay, that is nice, and I see a good fit for that. And that's kind of like, even I don't like to bring up too many other vendors, but Juniper with Apstra, they have a very similar, and I'm not talking about the VM integration part, I'm just talking about the fabric part, is they have an easier approach to fabric design as well, and it sounds like Nokia has that, and they might be kind of similar in that approach, but just that last presentation, that VMware connection, again, once it clicked at the end, I thought it was pretty cool. I'm definitely going to have to go back and re-watch that, since it clicked for me at the end. Once the full presentation is online, I'm definitely going to go back and give that a re-watch. So that was Nokia. Those were the presenters, or the presentations that they brought us through. It was a good introduction to more of the service side of Nokia, like what their switching hardware can actually do. I don't know a ton about the hardware, and these conversations weren't hardware focused. They were definitely software focused. So it was good to at least see that. And I do hope I get to see more from them in the future. I have to dig into their hardware so I understand the hardware platform a little bit better. But I do understand more what they do, and it is not old cell phones. That's a whole different division. So that concludes all of my wrap-ups. I am actually going to kick off one more video here real quick and just gush about Network Field Day 29. It was such a great couple of days, but if you want to see that, you'll have to check out that last video. So thanks for watching. We'll see you soon.